Today, we're going to walk through a powerful and, frankly, deeply sobering report from the SIHA network. It really lays bare the staggering scale of violence against women and girls in Sudan's ongoing conflict, and we're going to break down its key findings together. But before we get into any of the data, we have to start right here. This quote from the report itself is so important because it sets the stage for everything else. It's a crucial reminder that behind every single number we talk about, there is a human being, a life that has been changed forever. So let's start by trying to understand the sheer scale of this crisis. This report, which was published by the Strategic Initiative for Women in the Horn of Africa, documents what's known as sexual and gender-based violence, or SGBV. It covers the period between April 2023 and April 2024. And its title, More Than Numbers, really gets to the heart of its mission, to show us the human reality behind all the statistics. So what is the number? Well, across 14 states in Sudan, the SIHA network and its partners were able to meticulously verify and document 1,294 confirmed cases of this kind of violence. And this brings us to the most important question of all. Does this number even begin to tell the whole story? The report is crystal clear on this. Absolutely not. This figure isn't a measure of the full scale of the violence. It's a measure of what was even possible to document in the middle of a brutal war. So why is that number just the tip of the iceberg? Well, because survivors are up against this massive wall of silence. It's built from stigma, from a very real fear of retaliation. Many have no way to get to services, no safe way to even report what happened. The support systems that do exist are completely overwhelmed, and the sheer trauma of the experience, it can delay reporting for months, if it ever happens at all. And that leads the report to reframe this data in a really powerful way. The number 1294 isn't a true measure of how widespread this violence is. No. Instead, it's a measure of resistance. Every single documented case is a story that somehow managed to break through that immense barrier of silence. Okay, so this brings us to one of the report's most chilling arguments. This violence, it isn't random. It's not just some chaotic byproduct of conflict. It's being used intentionally, systematically, as a weapon of war. This defiant statement from the report just says it all. It's a direct challenge to anyone who might try to downplay these atrocities. The evidence is overwhelming. This violence is widespread, it's repeated, and it's intentional. In other words, it is absolutely systematic. And when you look at who is responsible, the data is, well, it's incredibly stark. Of all the cases where a perpetrator could be identified, a staggering 87% were attributed to soldiers from the Rapid Support Forces, or the RSF. This survivor's testimony from North Darfur really connects that data to a human story. And it highlights a key tactic documented in the report, ethnic profiling. Women from non-Arab tribes, like the Zagawa, the Fur, and the Masalit, were specifically targeted, turning sexual violence into a brutal tool of ethnic terror. You know, what's really chilling is that survivors and witnesses describe this predictable pattern. When RSF forces move into an area, the violence often unfolds in three distinct waves. First, there's the takeover, where rape goes hand in hand with looting in people's homes. Then comes the second wave, violence out in the open, targeting women in public spaces. And finally, a third phase of captivity, which involves targeted abduction, torture, and forced marriage. This methodical approach just underscores how intentional this all is. So let's look a little closer at the different forms this violence takes, because the report details a whole spectrum of violations, all part of this broader campaign designed to terrorize and completely break communities. And while that spectrum is wide, the data is really clear on the most prevalent form of attack. Of the cases where they had detailed information, an overwhelming 77% involved rape and gang rape. It is, without a doubt, the primary weapon being used. This harrowing account from a witness in Al-Gajida, it just reveals the public and psychological nature of these assaults. This wasn't something happening in the shadows. It was a performance of terror, done out in the open to demoralize and destroy the social fabric of an entire community. And the campaign of terror extends even further. The report also documents these horrific cases of sexual slavery, forced labor, child marriage, femicide, which is the targeted killing of women, as well as torture and enforced disappearances. So what's the lasting impact of all this? What's the toll of this campaign of terror? The report really details the devastating effect this violence has on individuals, their families, and their entire communities. The damage goes so much deeper than just physical wounds. The trauma of these acts, it just ripples outward, inflicting these deep psychological and social scars that can haunt survivors and their communities for generations to come. You really see this impact across three interconnected areas. Physically, survivors suffer just horrific injuries and forced pregnancies, all within a healthcare system that has completely collapsed. Mentally, they're dealing with profound trauma and, tragically, a growing crisis of suicide. And then socially, they are so often met with intense stigma, which makes it incredibly difficult, sometimes impossible, to rejoin their families and communities. This one story from Al Jazeera just brings that toll into such sharp focus. It captures the physical ordeal, the psychological terror, the isolation, and the agonizing uncertainty about what happened to others. This right here is the lived reality behind all the data.
You know, what makes all of this even more devastating is that the act of violence is just the beginning. It's compounded by a second crisis, the catastrophic failure of the very systems that are supposed to protect survivors. As the report shows, this is a story of profound abandonment.
And that's because a fundamental feature of this conflict is total impunity. The systems that are meant for justice and protection, they haven't just bent, they have completely broken.
And this failure is systemic. Health systems have collapsed. The specialized services for survivors are chronically underfunded and always seem to be the last priority. Legal systems simply aren't functioning. And the result of all this is a culture of total impunity, which sends a clear, chilling message to perpetrators that their crimes will have absolutely no consequences. So all of this, it leads to one final, incredibly difficult question. When the violence is this systematic and the failure of institutions is this complete, what is the path forward? Where do you even begin? The report, it doesn't offer any easy solutions. It can't. Instead, it ends with this profound challenge. Through immense courage, the survivors have spoken. They have broken the silence. And now, the responsibility to listen, to truly bear witness, and to act, that responsibility lies